Yeah. Okay. So knowledge of the four-leggeds is very important. So it's just not knowing, that this muskrat fur, like we would have used that for, it could be a rattle or it could just be an altar. And what I've been using it for lately is I've been taking it to the hospital for those that are crossing over from my community so they could just, how they're all got needles and intravenous this and everything, and just to put that over where it hurts is so soothing to them. And my elder that just passed and stuff, she goes, she said, oh, I remember the feel of muskrat, and stuff. So there's that sense of it, but it's knowing, and it's not just the muskrat root that we use, but it's knowing the whole muskrat and stuff, knowing about beaver, knowing about venison and bear and all of that. The winged ones, the finned ones, thank you. The finned ones, even the fish, there's stories of fish. I have a really beautiful experience of the salmon ceremony that we do. When the salmon run comes, we thank the salmon for coming to feed our people. So what we do is, it was this man's dream. He was my doorkeeper, the late Keith Atwin from Kingsclear First Nation. He said, I had this dream, but I got afraid because he was a retired RCMP officer because he had a brain aneurysm. So he had to retire as a RCMP officer. And so in his retirement, he came into our traditional pathway, and I was lucky enough that he was one of my doorkeepers for my sweat lodge. But I was the only one that would do, at the time anyways in our area, that would do sunrise sweat lodges. So I would do a sweat lodge at 6 in the morning when everybody was still sleeping. So he'd have to come about 4 to start the fire and keep it going, and which he didn't mind doing. So he would come and do that. And then just one time we're by the fire, and he goes, I had this dream, and I was afraid. I thought it was my father, who had passed away years ago, coming to tell me that it's my time to join him, because he was standing in the water up to his waist, and he's saying, Chquigwas, Chqui, come here, son, come here. And it goes, Dad, I'm afraid. He says, no, I'm not coming here to get you, but I have a message for you. And so he walks in the water with him. And when he got there, his father was half salmon and the other half was human. And he said, I'm here on behalf of the salmon. No one's singing to them anymore. No one is giving gratitude to them anymore. No one is doing this, so you need to, tell the women, and stuff. So he brought it to me and Gwen. And so Gwen and I started to do salmon ceremonies. And what I do now is I try to teach people that when you eat salmon or fish, in the winter, you keep it, the bones, the head, the tail, or whatever it is you don't eat, even from a restaurant. You put it in a container, put it in the freezer. In the spring, you take it out and you give it back to the water. And then you thank the salmon for that, and we never forget you. Thank you for your generosity. I hope you're safe. I hope you can continue to produce so that we'll be able to produce in a healthy way as well. And so that's what we did. So I would go to schools and have the Head Start children, and I remember when I brought leftover salmon, and I said, we're just going to put it in these little red cotton bags. We're going to tie it with sinew, and we're going to put one little stone in the back so that it'll, go into the bottom of the water. But they were going, pew, that smells. I said, oh, I want you to remember that smell, because we may not have salmon sometimes, and you'll remember this smell. Anyways, we did that, and all these little 4- and 5-year-olds were standing on the shoreline in the community, and we sang a song for the salmon, and they all let go. And it was so beautiful to watch these children sing to the salmon. And that's what we need to do, and stuff. So that's what I mean about the finned ones. and the ones who crawl upon the earth. There's many, many messages in our dream times when we have that. So for me, the ones who crawl, Ant is one of my spirit guides. And I have stories of Ant that, as a matter of fact, there's one being published right now, or in the process of becoming a book on ants. But there's the one of my dreams was being afraid in my dream because the ant was saying, "Come here, I want to show you something." Quick touching me, it's inviting me to go in. But when I got there, he's going into the ground, and as little as he is, and I went, "I'll never fit there." He said, "You're annex. You're an ant." And so I was an ant, and I went in and I followed him, and I didn't want to look back. In how they say when you're high, don't look down. Well, I didn't want to look back because I was afraid of it closing behind me, and I'd be afraid, not being able to get back. But when I got there, it took me down and down and down, and finally said, "We used to have water here, and your human family is wasting water. There's not going to be enough water for future generations, so you have to start doing water ceremonies." And I said, "Okay, what do I do?" He says, "You'll know how to do ceremonies. You're already doing ceremony." I woke up, and it was raining. And the first thing I did is I went outside, and I did ceremony and thanked the rain and promised never to complain about the rain. And I would teach others not to complain about the rain. And so we do water ceremonies now, and this is one of them. This is one of them, is just having water here so that we're reminded of tears. We're reminded of emotions. We're reminded of pain. We're reminded of cleansing, And so water is more than just to quench our thirst, or to bathe our bodies, and stuff. So, and especially listening to the women out there that they walked around the Great Lakes, you know what I mean? These women, it took them, I think they said 2 months, but they walked around to pray. They stayed with strangers, and it's just amazing what they're doing. But their intent is to pray for all the waterways around the world. So they've got women going, so I'm not sure there's one going on here. I'm going to find out anyways and stuff. So I might be calling on you and stuff, you know what I mean, to do water ceremonies and stuff. Okay, knowledge of the land, and that's what I was telling these young people. Knowledge of the land isn't just knowing species and knowing the kind of trees and knowing the medicines and the berries. It's knowing that our connection to her, I'll share something. My family thought I was a little bit, how much ceremony have you done? How many fasts have you done? Because I've never believed this before. When my mother was passing in 2010, she was in intensive care unit, and there was this little bitty, out of nowhere, centipede, I think. It's one of those bugs with lots and lots of legs, underneath her bed. And of course, where did it come from? Because it's November, and stuff, and it wasn't there before. And I knew right away it was spirit helpers. But the rest of the family was like, "Oh, it's just a bug." And I couldn't stop my aunt, who was a non-believer, and she just went and she stepped on it, and I was so hurt. Whoops, I was so hurt. But I said, "Okay, that's all right. You didn't understand. I don't expect you to, but I need to take care of this bug." So I went and I got my cloth and I picked it up, wrapped it up, and I'm apologizing to it all the way down the hospital corridor to outside. I made a little burial site for it, and I says, "I know I'm taking care of you now. I know you'll be taking care of my mother when she's joining you in your world." And I covered it up and I brought it back in. And it was like, "What you do?" And I explained what I did. And so it's a whole other level of understanding about being one with creation, and stuff. So knowledge of the land is way deeper than what we get from the land, and stuff. It's what we have to do ourselves to that, yeah. Okay. I think there's a, oops, sorry. Oh, that chocolate chip. Knowledge of the star people. And when we look, in my language, and I know Mi'kmaq's the same, we have, and they have a beautiful story of the 8-point star, and stuff. But we look at the stars as not constellations, as people. They're star people. They're when we help tell our children when they're frightened, well, don't worry, look for one star in the sky that you can look at every night, or I know we're going to be far away, but you pick a star and that night you go look at it and I'll look at it and you'll know we're connecting, and so on and so forth. Clouds, Owen. Owen is the one who tells us to take it easy, so puts a mist in there so that we're not rushing through life. So Owen is the cloud ones, the cloud family or the mist family that teaches us how to slow down. That's why we slow down when there's mist and stuff. So it's because sometimes we hurry too much. Thunder beings. I know we used to hear, their grandfather's bowling, up there, or they're moving furniture around, or so on and so forth. But there's actually legends of the thunder beings, and how they help us here. Grandfather sun and grandmother moon. So in my language, if this language is lost, this connection, this lust of knowledge, this worldview will go with it, and so that's why we have to protect it and stuff. So knowledge of your ancestry, and it's not just knowing your mother's side and your father's side, and so we have clans, David, his aunt had told him years ago that he belongs to the Porcupine clan, so poor Dave's been trying to learn all he could about the Porcupine clan. Come to find